10 of Swords Prelude Part 2 is upon us with X-Men number 12. This issue really sets the stage for what's to come. It raises so many questions while revealing so very much. We're looking at the history of the island of Krakoa and about Apocalypse's hidden history. In the early days of the Krakoan nation, it merged with a mysterious island of beasts, a piece of Krakoa's lost other half, Arakko. The only other inhabitant of this fragment was a summoner, invulnerable and able to call forth monsters, who has now made his home on Krakoa. Of course, Jonathan Hickman is writing this, Lionel Francis Yu is the artist, Sonny Go is the color artist, Clayton Cowles on letters, Tom Muller doing the design, just like all of the other Dawn of X titles. Before I continue, please, if you have not subscribed, I would love to have you subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. If you're enjoying Dawn of X, 10 of Swords event, I'm going to be covering this entire thing. I would love to have you along for the ride. So we pick right back up in the middle of that game that Rockslide and the Summoner were having at the very beginning of X-Men number 11. They're talking about how much they've learned from each other, real weaknesses that they have. Rockslide, he understands that the Summoner is invulnerable, but his eyes are his weakness. The Summoner recognizes that Rockslide is an energy body inside of this shell, that the energy body is the real him, and that's a vulnerability. They're both pointing out these vulnerabilities in this game that they've been playing. And it actually looks like a pretty friendly game. I remember her looking back over X-Men number 11, and I thought it was really, really creepy, the way that the Summoner was approaching Rockslide and the rest of the Krakoan mutants. Right then, Apocalypse walks off, and the Summoner says, "Hello, Grandfather. I was showing my friends here an Iraqi game." I don't know how to say that word. "Would you care to join in?" Apocalypse says, "Do I look like a player of games?" And the Summoner smiles, "Yes, very much so." The Summoner asks if it's time. "I've built the external gate, constructed it on the bones of immortal mutants, just as planned, just as was required. So you've made a door home, and the next way to Arakko is open. Now we simply have to walk through." "But I sense hesitation, Grandfather. Why?" Apocalypse says, "When I saw you, and that you were of my lineage, I put my faith in that. But before I send the whole of Krakoa across Otherworld and into the unknown, there are things I have to know that you have not yet told me." Summoner says, you want to know what really happened? How we fought? How we fell? Very well. And so begins this new chapter in mutantdom history. This section of this book is called A Mutant's History of Arakko and the Fallen World of Amenth. I'll start with what I know you know, the story as was told to me. Okara, the one land of mutants. It was ancient before that word existed, but not yet old in the way they were old. The twilight sword of the enemy tore the world asunder, and what was one became two. And from the chasm between them, from the dark world, the enemies poured into this world, until at great cost the army of the enemy, along with Arakko itself, were pushed back through, and the chasm was sealed shut. But like all stories old enough to grow in the telling, it's sometimes become difficult to separate fact from fiction, or truth from lies. Some say that you stayed behind to prevent the world from falling, to seal the breach and save what could be saved. After all, you were Apocalypse, the warrior, god in blue, the great reseeder, the first mutant of the second generation of mutantdom on Earth. But there are others who tell stories of betrayal, of sacrificing your family to preserve yourself and what little could be saved. Finally, there are whispers of something worse, judgment and a slavery to fate, that you are a prisoner to the whims of others. The only sure truth that survives all telling is this: what should never have been cleaved in two was separated forever. Husband from wife, parent from child, Arakko from Krakoa. From one trauma, the mutants of Arakko plunged themselves into the hell of the next one. What waited for them was not an army, no. For some, it meant madness. For the rest, it was the wasteland of a world called Eminth, a black world, a fallen world. What they saw surprised them, a desolate nothing littered with the bodies of defeated enemies. All knew this handiwork. All recognized the black acts of the White Sword and his 100 champions. He was nowhere to be seen. No trace of him remained, but his bloody hand had brought Arakko time. And with that time, we worked wonders. It was our age of legends, a miracle of mutantdom. Much of the work done by brave mutant alchemists and engineers still stands to this day. Not all, of course. Now only a few remain. But then, there were 10 towers, and all the land between them was ours. When the army of Eminth finally came, we showed them no mercy. And for thousands of years, the towers held and the horde died at our border. Generations of mutants lived and died, never knowing defeat. And so, I was born in glory 300 years ago. As a child, all I knew was the world inside our walls. It was all any of us knew. It was a special kind of ignorance. Living in the only safe place in a world of violence and believing it must be this way for all, we knew nothing of what Eminth truly was. When my cribmate, the high mutant prophet Idol, went blind after seeing the fall of our great towers, people say Genesis laughed at him and threatened to remove his weak head from his weak shoulders. Genesis, the authority of Arakko, the mother of horsemen, the wife of Apocalypse. And instead of striking Idol down, she raised an army. They were gone for 20 years. Every few months, word would arrive of their conquest, and all of Arakko would celebrate. We feasted on victory. It was our birthright, and Genesis fed us well. Then, 2 centuries ago, our army fell silent. Later we would learn they had reached the Ivory Spire. It was the stronghold of the long-thought lost White Sword, Purity. He was our greatest healer, immortal, external. Each morning, the White Sword resurrected his 100 champions and rode out to slaughter Amenthi demons, warring until the last soldier in his army died, only to begin again the next day. Genesis said that the death and resurrection cycle he lived had become his religion. She said he had become just as alien as the horde he raged against, and we mutants of Arakko were the same to him. We tasted our first defeat at the hands of one of our own. We heard nothing for 6 years, and then, having escaped by untold and never spoken means, Genesis and the few mutants who survived returned home to Arakko. They returned, only to find more defeat waiting for them. Iska, the traitor, Iska, the unbeaten. Her mutant power was that she could not lose. It was her power that forced her to join Eminth in the war against Okara. Understand, she had to. They were going to win, and she cannot lose. Iska had been sent to invite Genesis to parley with Annihilation, the god of Eminth, at the seat of the Golden Helm's power in the capital city of Eminth. No one knows what words passed between them, just that Genesis accepted. It is said the Great Hall of Annihilation was full that day, that the full might of Eminth was witnessed for the first time. Amenthi demons and worse were waiting for Genesis to arrive. I wonder, were they silent as Genesis approached Annihilation's throne? Did they scream and rage, or did they mock and jeer? All we know, for sure, is this. They battled to the death, with the fate of Arakko in the balance. They battled, and Genesis was found wanting, defeated, unfit, and buried. And buried with her was all hope for Arakko. You see, their god is called Annihilation for a reason. For 100 years, the mad horde, the true might of Eminth, battered the walls of Arakko. Mutants died, towers fell, but somehow we held. Because there was still hope. Hope that somewhere out there you had raised a new mutant society, a greater one, and with it, a mutant army that could save us all. We held out until we couldn't any longer. I was sent ahead to find you. Others sought out a different kind of salvation, but I knew nothing of their success or failure. I only know the last words of war, a farewell, and an under siege Arakko. Grandfather, great apocalypse, we are out of time. Amenth is on the march, and only you can save us. What an interesting history that has been applied to this island, and learning about all of this and Apocalypse and his family and these summoners. What a fascinating issue, and what a great intro to an intense event that's about to unfold that will change the course of mutantdom forever. Apocalypse says that the price has been paid. He has done the work. He has built the external gate. Unus the Untouchable and Banshee are going with the summoner to travel across Otherworld to Arakko. As you do, I will marshal the might of Krakoa to rescue Arakko and heal that which was wounded so long ago. However, if you find that Arakko has fallen, then return quickly, his grandson asks, so that you might save any survivors, rescue any enslaved? Apocalypse says, that, and have my long-awaited revenge. Summoner says, I can feel it, grandfather. This is the beginning of a new age, and when you see me again, I will greet you in the manner befitting not just of a hero of Krakoa, but as the father and true heir of Arakko. You have my word, grandfather. This, I promise. This is definitely a new and interesting chapter in Mutants and in the X-Men, and I look forward to what is going to happen. I want to know more about this history, and I want to see more from this event after reading this issue. Again, if you are interested in finding out more about Ten of Swords and continuing to watch these videos, please hit subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. I would love to have you come along. Always support your local comic shop. You are the gateway into comics.